Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Unlimited Sports pregame show. My name is Dermot Pogson.
And I'm Olivia Davenport.
And we are excited to be welcoming you to our inaugural broadcast of the Unlimited Sports pregame show. Today, we're going to be doing some pregame coverage for the Nebraska Cornhuskers as they take on the Indiana Hoosiers at Lincoln, Nebraska's Memorial Stadium. There's a few things we want to go over today. We're excited to have you guys with us. Thank you very much for tuning into the stream. Some context for the game today. We've got homecoming for Nebraska here in Lincoln. It is the start of a four-game home stretch for them. They are 1-3, coming off a bye and two tough losses to Oklahoma and Georgia Southern. In the Oklahoma game, they got absolutely blown out in a rather embarrassing display of defensive failure. In the Georgia Southern game, saw the air raid offense just take advantage of a lackluster secondary. Indiana, on the other hand, is 3-1, coming off a tough loss to Cincinnati. They are looking to recover, kind of gain some momentum. They had a few good wins to start off the year, but are just looking to get the train kind of back on tracks and rolling. We have a lot of things to cover with you guys today. Some players to watch, a look at the coaching situation for both teams, and some keys for both teams going into this game. So thank you very much for joining us, and we are excited to kind of get this underway. Olivia, we're going to start off some players to watch. Obviously, both teams have some big names coming in. Could you tell us a little bit about who Nebraska has?
Yeah. So for Nebraska, Trey Palmer with 28 receptions in the first four games, which is the most in Nebraska history. We're going to be seeing him get the ball a lot today. Nebraska fans hoping to see him in the end zone frequently, as well as Anthony Grant rushing 116 yards per game with 5 rushing touchdowns. He had a slow game versus OU, which could be at fault of our O-line, but 13 carries for 36 yards.
Another name to look out for is Marcus Washington. He has had 12 receptions for 198 yards so far this year. He has a career high of 123 yards against Georgia Southern in a game that was very much back and forth in the pass game. So obviously, right now, with a shift in the leadership of the Nebraska program, there's been a lot more of an emphasis on the pass game. We are excited to see what that team can come up with as they go into this game, looking to kind of bring up the pace and get some big yard plays downfield. The defense, on the other hand, has seen a few other big names. O'Shawn Mathis had 22 tackles and a sack so far this season. He logged 7 of those and a quarterback hit against Oklahoma. He's a major transfer from TCU. We'll go a little bit into that later, talking about some of the transfer portal moves that have happened. Some other big names to look out for are linebackers Nick Henrich and Luke Reimer. They are each respectively veterans. They're coming in as captains this season. 99 tackles for Henrich and 108 for Luke Reimer last season. They are looking to be the first pair of Nebraska linebackers to total for 100 tackles each since Barrett Ruud and Demoria Williams in 2003. Barrett Ruud, a name you might be familiar with, is the linebackers coach at Nebraska currently, and those two are looking to kind of make their imprint on the team and the history books themselves. They've been working together for a few years now. They're both Nebraska natives and are very excited to be leading this defense. Olivia, could you tell us a little bit about Indiana?
Yeah, so for the offense for Indiana, we've got Cam Camper with 33 receptions for 418 yards, 1 touchdown, and he will be a primary passing threat. 1 double-digit reception game away from tying the school record. So, again, Nebraska's going to have to work really hard to see a bunch of coverage on him, make sure he's not getting the ball too often. Sean Shivers had career-long 47-yard rush versus Cincinnati, 150 yards versus Idaho, and has both rushing and receiving touchdowns. So a double threat there. Nebraska's going to have to keep an eye on him. And Josh Henderson, Shivers' counterpart, rushing and receiving touchdowns this year as well.
The Indiana offense has looked fast this year. They are one of the fastest offenses in the nation. They logged 104 snaps against Cincinnati. Cam Camper has been their number one guy downfield. His 33 receptions for 418 yards is monumental for their offense. He is over double the output of the nearest next best receiver. Obviously, only being 1 double-digit reception game away from tying a school record for any player is going to be huge. But knowing that it is only week 5 and he has a lot more of output in front of him, there is definitely some football to be watched from him. I am very certain that he's going to have quite the day, especially coming up against a struggling secondary from Nebraska. Sean Shivers and Josh Henderson have worked as a tandem so far, being the main rushers for Cincinnati. They like the power rush. They like to run the ball up the middle and try to use their fast-paced offense to catch the defense off guard. They run some no-huddle looks, and so anytime that you run no-huddle, you need to be having guys that are resilient, guys that are fast, guys that are willing to kind of keep the pace high and stay sprinting basically the whole game. So these are two guys that you definitely want to keep an eye out for as we get into today's contest. The defense, Deshaun McCulloch, a true freshman, has 3 sacks already, having an incredible breakout year. He is one of the bull linebackers, they call them, at Indiana, where he is kind of a combination between a DN and an outside linebacker. He focuses a little bit more on the edge rush, but also still drops into coverage from time to time when they need him. He's had an absolutely monumental year and is being touted as one of the best true freshmen in the game right now. Definitely a name to keep an eye out for. Another one being Cam Jones. He's got 43 tackles on the year. He's a senior leader. He's appeared in 46 of 49 career games. He's just been a stronghold for Indiana on the defensive front, somebody that they really look to for leadership both in the locker room and on the field, and somebody that you definitely want to keep an eye out for going into this game. Aaron Casey is coming off his first career double-digit tackle game. He had 6 tackles for a loss this season already. Another guy that is looking to kind of make a big impact on the game so far. Defensively, Indiana has struggled, so these are a couple of names of guys that I definitely want to see an increased output from and would like to kind of make more of a footprint in this game than they had previously. On the special teams, Nebraska's punter, Brian Buschini, is averaging 45.2 yards per punt. He kicked a career-long 65-yarder against Georgia Southern. Nebraska's had a lot of opportunities to punt this season. They have not been particularly efficient in their first downs on third downs and trying to get yardage, as they move down the field. So he has had quite a year and definitely somebody that they're going to want to keep utilizing when they need to. Indiana is very similar in that James Evan is logging 43.8 yards per punt. He's from Auckland, New Zealand, and he's very excited to be playing some football here in Indiana, especially here in the NCAA. We've had a couple of big name foreign players come in and play in the NCAA this year, and he's one of those guys that's really great to take a look at and see how people from all over the world are able to find success in the NCAA playing college football. The Nebraska kicker, Tibby Bleekrode, is perfect on extra points for the year. He struggled a bit, though, from the field kicking his field goals. He was 1 for 3 so far. He's got a long of 46. That's the only field goal that he's made. Whereas Charles Campbell is ranked 18th in points all-time for Indiana and 8th all-time in field goals made. He is nothing but consistent. When they get down the field and they're trying to make an impact and they're trying to just get some points on the board, he is definitely a guy that they feel comfortable going to in long drive situations. Expect to see him towards the end of the half, towards the end of the game. Anytime if it's close, they're going to be looking to try and get him set up for a quick 3 points that they know they can count on. We'd like to look a little bit at what we can expect from this game. Nebraska is averaging 451 yards per game, 193 of those being rushing, and 258 of those being passing. They are a fast-paced offense. They like efficient ball movement, and they like to try and kind of shift away from their historical power run, option run style of play and shift towards more of a West Coast offense under Mark Whipple.
Yeah. So Nebraska, with a good amount of rushing yards as well as passing, they're going to look to pass downfield. Indiana's really going to have to work in the secondary to force Nebraska to try and run the ball more.
Indiana has been passing for nearly 300 yards per game. They run a no-huddle look, and they love to throw the ball fast on quick out routes, quick in routes, anything they can get a really high kind of percentage of completion off of. Could you tell us a little bit about what they're looking to kind of do this game?
Yeah, so Indiana is definitely going to work to tire out the Nebraska defense. If the Nebraska defense is seeing a lot of time on the field, it's going to be very easy for Indiana to get downfield quickly, as the Nebraska defense will struggle to get to the line. We might see some false starts, offsides. Indiana's really looking to use their speed as a weapon against the struggling Nebraska defense.
Absolutely. They are an incredibly fast-paced offense. They definitely like to try and keep the ball moving, and once they start moving, they don't like to let it stop. Even when there's stoppages in play, they still like to return to their no-huddle looks and get their calls on the field quickly so they can keep that pace of play high. For a defense such as Nebraska's that has struggled against fast-paced offenses so far, they're definitely looking for, kind of keeping that level of production up and making sure that they can kind of keep those quick yards coming. Additionally, as far as the attendance goes, this is going to be a very big game just as far as individuals at the game. Indiana's largest game attendance so far for fans has been 48,000. This is going to be probably double that. This will be Nebraska's 386th sellout streak. Could you tell us a little bit about what that sellout streak means to the people in Nebraska?
Yeah, so obviously Nebraska fans show out every game no matter what the outcome may be. Last week the week before, got stomped on by Oklahoma, and here we are again with another sellout. With it being homecoming week, I think spirits are really high, and I think a win for Nebraska would really solidify the confidence that the fans have in the team to perform well and have success.
Absolutely. Some of the film study kind of going into this game has shown an interesting difference in kind of theory of play from both of these teams. Nebraska's defense loves to run the nickel, which is very similar to the style of play that they've done for years prior. Gifford has been looking as probably our primary nickelback so far this season. They've run into some problems against teams that like to pass the ball and like to pass the ball deep. Georgia Southern in particular really like to torch them on the deep ball, and that's something that they definitely don't want to allow to have happen. As we mentioned earlier, Indiana loves to throw the ball. They love to throw the ball downfield. That could be something that Nebraska definitely struggles with.
Nebraska really needs to focus on not giving up a big play. You know, a first down here and there isn't going to kill them, but a 50-yard pass multiple times a game is going to hurt them in the long run.
Absolutely. Indiana's defense also runs a very interesting 4-2-5 base. They have two hybrid positions that they like to run. They have the Bull and the Husky, which we mentioned a little bit earlier. The Bull is a defensive line linebacker hybrid. As we mentioned, his kind of main goal is to be an edge rusher that can drop into coverage and be kind of that utility player, someone that's big, that's strong, that's fast, isn't afraid to kind of go deep into coverage if they need him to, so they can kind of keep those looks, alternating. The Husky is a linebacker and safety hybrid. He is kind of like a third linebacker. Last week, they actually started just a third linebacker rather than their typical Husky look, but they have ran their Husky look for half the games that they've played so far this season. The history of this matchup is fairly recent. Olivia can tell us a little bit more about that.
So this is the third meeting between Nebraska and Indiana since Nebraska joined the Big Ten. IU has won the first two, most recently by 7 points in 2019. Mickey Joseph, this will be his first game against Indiana, and Tom Allen's second against Nebraska. Prior to Nebraska joining the Big Ten, they have not faced since 1978. So these teams are fairly unfamiliar with each other. It will be interesting to see how that plays out.
Absolutely. There are some pretty important kind of keys to this game. It's definitely a new matchup between the two. They have not played each other very much. Both teams really need to establish the O-line. The run game for both teams has been shoddy at best. Could you tell us a little bit about what that kind of is looking like going into this matchup?
Yeah, so we know, everybody knows Indiana's been struggling with their O-line. They've had a few injured linemen, which could have played a role in that. With establishing the run and tiring out the O-line, both teams may see success with that.
Absolutely. It's definitely been an interesting year for both teams, kind of dealing with injuries and trying to get their offenses established. Indiana's had more success as far as just winning games so far, but they both have looked fairly similar in their outward levels of production. Some head coach storylines are important to kind of take a look at. Mickey Joseph is trying to bounce back from a loss, wants to regain some confidence in the locker room. He talked about that in his post game, his presser going into the bye week, and also being that it's the homecoming game, it's going to be big for campus confidence, trying to keep the school behind the team. They are also 5.5-point favorites, so they want to establish themselves as a viable FBS contender, a program that can in fact go out and win games. A quote from Mickey Joseph going into this game is, "It's really important for this football team just to get some confidence that they can start something and finish it. That's our goal, to beat Indiana." Obviously, they've got one goal in mind, and they're excited to try and get that underway.
Mm-hmm. Tom Allen, this is his sixth career season, second game against Nebraska. First was a win in 2019. He is currently on a 3-1 record, the recent loss against Cincinnati, 3 wins against underdeveloped programs. So this is really going to be a teller for Indiana. Cincinnati's very good team. Should they have won? I don't know. But this will really show them what they can or cannot do and help them point out their struggles. He struggled to win a one-on-one battle in the secondary last week, so if Casey Thompson can look to throw downfield, he may see success there. A quote from Allen himself, "It's about consistent execution. That's what it comes down to me. It's been our Achilles heel so far and was too much to overcome in the first half for our team."
The defensive coordinator situation for Nebraska is also an interesting thing to keep an eye on. Eric Schneiner, was fired this past week, and Bill Bush has been taking over as the interim. They wanted to simplify the playbook going into this game. They had a lot of trouble getting their calls on the field and getting the defense set in advance. Against a fast-paced offense like Indiana, that's going to be increasingly important. So they're looking to try and improve from where they had been. They are currently ranked 127th in the country against the run and 115th against the pass. We've had a very interesting look at what it means to kind of be a Nebraska black shirt this year. It definitely has not been the strong point that it used to be for that program for many years. For the assistant coaches, Joey Connor steps in for special teams since Bill Bush was promoted to the defensive coordinator. Mike Cassano is taking his second game as the wide receivers coach. And coming off of a bye week, they've had a lot of extra time to kind of implement their changes. That's something we should definitely be able to keep an eye on, looking at the special teams play, at the wide receiver play, see if there's any noticeable improvements or noticeable changes in how they go about playing this game. It definitely could be a good opportunity to see some changes made.
With the recent bye week, both coaches in new positions have had a good chance to really work with their defense or their special teams, and maybe we'll really be seeing some changes this week for Nebraska. Casey Thompson's production. So Casey Thompson has 995 yards on the year, 5 passing touchdowns, a pair of 300-yard games, 355 against Northwestern, was the most by a Nebraska quarterback in their debut. 4 rushing touchdowns, 3 against Georgia Southern, and versus Oklahoma, 14 for 20 for 129 yards, 1 touchdown on the opening drive, and he was sacked 4 times for 30 yards, which might have scared him a little bit.
Absolutely. It definitely was a tough day to be a quarterback for Nebraska in their game against Oklahoma. What do you think his keys are going to need to be for success this week?
Yeah, so Casey needs to stay efficient in the short pass game and stay patient until the deep pass game opens up. Nebraska is quick to abandon the short pass game and force deep routes when the pass rush is too weak for the O-line.
Absolutely. Conor Bazelac had a great season so far. He's already had 1,171 yards on the year, 7 passing touchdowns, as well as a pair of 300-yard games as well. He's the first Hoosier since Antoine Randall in 1998 to throw for over 300 yards in his debut. He has not really shown much of a rushing threat, but he has been comfortable moving in the pocket. So it'll be interesting to watch that quarterback battle happening, this week. We'd like to invite you guys to kind of follow us at KRNU 90.3 for the Husker Countdown pregame show on the radio. It's a great program that they're running over there, and we look forward to kind of catching you guys for the game. But thank you very much for tuning in to the Unlimited Sports pregame show, and we thank you for joining us on our inaugural broadcast.